Hello and welcome to this video. You may have noticed that I'm further away than normal. You may have noticed that I am talking in my garage and you can hear the acoustic, which is partially the fact that I'm in a garage, a brick built garage, and partly the fact that I'm surrounded by drum kits. When you watch my videos, you might not be aware I'm surrounded by drum, because you might see the odd drum here and there, but I'm surrounded by drum kits, you know. Why have I pulled back? Right, it's to make a point that I'm making YouTube videos, and I have an intention behind these videos, and the intention is more than what I'm saying. Okay, and on this video I want to state what my intentions are, because recently, this is going to be quite a serious video, this one is. Recently I feel that things have got out of control here a little bit, and so for those people who are interested, I'm going to try and state what I'm trying to do here, state what my intentions are, sort of outline what I think's happened. This is the teacher in me. This is like the thing where you get the class in and go, right, it's all got to be out of control, kids. Let's all sit down and have a chat about this. And I think this part of this is my fault as well. So I'm going to put my hands up there. Anyway, let's start with my intentions, right? My intentions on this channel is to talk about music, right? And in talk about music, I can then narrow that down, you know, to the microscopic. And I want to talk about certain musics that I think have got ignored by the mainstream, and they get ignored because they're arty and they're difficult. And not only are they arty and difficult, they don't often acquire the critical weight that other arty-farty types of art and music get, right? So I want to look at classic rock, prog, I want to look at experimental music, jazz, jazz rock, jazz fusion, and basically a whole ton of music which gets discussed when musicians get in a room together, right? I know it looks like I'm a middle-aged guy sat in front of my records, and I've been criticised for that. There are a lot of people like that out there, and they've got a perfect right to make these videos, and I think they're wonderful, and I'm a big fan of those people, right? And they really know about their music, and in many ways they know more about the music than I do. I am a working musician. I'm a drummer that's worked in these styles but also worked in other styles, and I come and talk to you as a musician. That is my sphere of knowledge. I haven't got a degree in music. I haven't studied it officially. My degree was in art, and I bring also to it a view of music being art. So I like to remind everybody that music is actually an art form. So on the wider thing, I'm also on this channel. Another intention is to talk about art and talk about creativity. And I want to talk to musicians and music fans alike. And the reason why I want to bring them all together is because it allows artists and musicians to then connect. And that has been an intention of mine with this channel. That's the macroscopic part of it. So we've got these specific music forms, but we can open out. And I may talk about, you know, one day I've just done a video on Queen, which is much more mainstream group. And I will talk about artistic ideas, creativity, the psychology behind art, the intention of art. And fundamentally, I want to have a discussion about something that cannot be answered, which is what art does. And I want to have that discussion because although it can't be answered, we can arrive at our own idea about it, and we do that through discussion. And I think discussion is very important. And because discussion is very important in my view of things, I have been, since this channel started, very active in reading all the comments. Even when a video's had 4,000, I've gone through all those comments and I've tried to answer them and like them, and I've tried to comment, and I've got into arguments with people about it, which have been very, very illuminating and useful for me. And the channel, here we are, 650 coming up to 700 videos, And this has been directly created by you lot watching it, because I have responded continually. I've gone, oh, they're interested in this, let's go down that. And that's the way the channel works. And when we've got into arguments, I've tried to come on here and argue my case, but also I'm a big believer in being challenged and then changing your opinion. Now this gets into another area now, is because of my art background, I don't just see this as a camera on and talking to you. What's coming out of my mouth here is only a part of it. This YouTube channel I see as being a genre. And it's the genre of the older guy in front of his records talking to you. And there's a certain expectation. But I want to play with that expectation. And one of the ways I'm going to play with it, you know, and I'm not doing it on this channel, this video, this is very serious. But sometimes I will bring in humour. And if I bring in humour, that means sometimes I am not saying my opinion, or I'm not telling the truth. There are moments on this channel where I've outright lied. Right? I've lied to you. Now, I haven't done this at any point where I've been manipulative or deceptive. If you go to my top 10 biscuits video, now that biscuits video isn't there just to have a laugh, right? I do ranking videos, right? I believe in the ranking videos. I think there's a lot of great stuff that could come out for artists and listeners alike by watching a ranking video. But I'm very aware that the ranking video is at once subjective and objective. It's not either. And everybody comes on here, well, not everybody, a lot of people come on here and they want it to be one or the other, mainly subjective. Or why have you got a right to have an opinion? This is all subjective. Why are you here talking about it? I'm here talking about it because there's an interest. And the reason why there's an interest is because it's not subjective. There's an element of objectivity, and you're interested in my opinion. And if I say things that sort of resonate with you about a certain album or artist, and you go, oh my God, that's my experience, it makes us realise that art is not subjective. And the power of art is in that it's not subjective. But the reason why it works is because it is subjective. And this is a very hard thing to explain, right? And so if you go to the biscuit video is really lampooning the idea of a ranking video. It's talking about the idea of taste. I'm going to explain it to you now. When you eat a biscuit, it's perfectly about taste. It's your taste. Nobody can have the top 10 biscuits because we have different tastes. You know, but we don't have objectively different tastes. We can sort of agree on things. I like hobnobs, you know, not all this sort of thing. And it also exposes something that's very apparent on this channel, is I'm interested in the English aesthetic. I'm an English person and I want to talk about rock music and jazz from my English perspective, because I think there's an importance there. Because England is a tiny country that has punched way above its weight in terms of music, especially popular music. So I'm interested in the English aesthetic, and the English aesthetic includes absurdist humour. So we now have this humour come back in, right? The humour is there, and I will. So what I'm saying is that my videos, the way I see them, is they are more than just me talking. Sometimes they're just talking, right? This video is going to be half an hour long. I'm not going to go over half an hour because I don't have to edit at all then. This is just going to be the raw video uploaded. That's why you saw me walk into it, and that means something. You saw me switch the camera on. I haven't edited the bit off at the beginning. This is raw video. It's where I started on the channel, just talking to you, right, to camera. That's what's going on. All this means something to me. Everything here means something to me. I've mentioned over and over again that I did my dissertation when I was at college in French New Wave film. I mentioned that a number of times. I don't just mention that to give myself credit. It's because French New Wave film was built on the idea of mise en scene, and it was built on the idea of the auteur. That the person that creates the art is in control of absolutely everything. So when you watch something, maybe something in the back means something. Maybe the way I'm sat means something. Maybe the content of the video and how it's been shot and how it differs, you know. Maybe the fact that last week you had a video on a Friday, which is my big night, right? A big night for me to release videos. You came out with this aesthetic video where I didn't talk. It was just all psychedelic weirdness, and it had all sorts of philosophy in it. It was something completely different to this, which is me just talking to camera, right? But I'm going to use Brechterian effects. There's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to try and make you aware that you're watching a video. I'm going to make you aware. Is this guy telling the truth, or where is he coming from? What is his motives? Why is he saying this? All these things, these are the intentions of this channel. This is what I decide. Now, I didn't know this when I set this channel up. Right, when I started doing this, I just was going, well, this is interesting. I was doing ranking videos, and then I started to think about the nature of ranking videos, the nature of aesthetics, how we decide what is good, how we decide what is bad, how an artist needs to know that, how an artist assumes that there is an objectivity between them and the audience, or they wouldn't make the art. They make something in hoping that they can feel something about the world and communicate it to another person. But when someone likes it for a reason that was different to what they intended, they get sometimes trouble, but sometimes they accept it and they realise. And these ideas. Now, why is this important to talk about? I believe art does not work unless you talk about it. Right? The art is really important. The most important thing is the art. But underneath is the chat, the talk. It's like if you go to an art gallery, like I can remember as a kid when I was at art college, we went to an art gallery and I went with my painting teacher who knew way more about art than me. And walking around this art gallery with him discussing stuff was like just a revelation. You know, absolute revelation. And not just what he was saying, because he would work up to a painting and then he would burst out laughing. Like he looked at one painting and went, whoa, well, I suppose didn't feel the need to finish that one, and walked off. And I looked at it, was that one not finished? And why is it funny that it's not finished? And what is it, that part of the reason? The talk is important. Right, and the way the talk is done is important. And everything is art. Everything is art. Art is so much more important. So when you're watching YouTube videos, every one of those videos on YouTube is a piece of art. It's been created as art. Some of it's there to put impart information. Some of it there is purely for entertainment. But art contains both of those things, and it's an amalgamation of those two things. This is the intentions of my channel, is to bring people here. Now, why do I want to do it? Why is this important? Well, partly is that my own personal circumstances has been that me as an educator, I realised that I needed to move my educational thing that I do elsewhere. I need to move it into this realm because the other one's not working so well at the moment. And why is it not working? Well, I believe it is because we as a culture have become, and this is my own personal opinion, we as a culture have become what I call ideologically captured. And so there's things out there that now that you're moving towards, you can't really talk about that. You shouldn't say that. You should say that. And then there's this big argument about free speech. And I am more interested in free expression. Right? If without free expression, art won't work. And without art, we are doomed, because I think art is very important. You may think it's not important. You may think we can live without art, and you're entitled to that opinion. And we can have a discussion about it. If I'm wrong, then I will be wrong. Right, but I won't have killed anybody. But if I'm right and I can help in actually getting into few people's heads the fact that art is actually really important, it's as important as science. I believe science is wrapped up inside art. I believe ethics and morality is wrapped up inside art. I've had 40 years thinking about this, right, and these are the conclusions I've come to. I want to come and talk on here. I could be wrong. I want to have the discussion. YouTube is not, if I was writing a book, I would have checked all this out and made sure I got it all correct. That's not what YouTube is. We're here, 650 videos in. This is a journey. You come into my world, and if you like it, you start exploring it. And you may find that I contradict yourself. You may find that I lie. You may find that sometimes I'm really angry, and sometimes I'm pretending to be angry. Sometimes I'm joking, and sometimes I'm very serious. You will see a whole world. You will see me coming and talking. This is not science. I'm not here to, in fact, impart historical facts. I'm here to do art and talk about my opinion, like an artist does, might express what I think about the world to people out there, and for them to respond, and for there to be a dialogue, and for us all to arrive at somewhere else. Now, why should I be doing that? A, because I'm a musician, and I've got some experience as a musician for a number of years, and I'm a teacher, and I've stood up in classes talking, and I've ridden the wave of education, and I've come to some conclusions. I could be wrong. All of this, like any of us could be wrong. I'm here to have the conversation, right? Now, let's bring it up to date. I think that our culture is running down. I think we're in a crisis at the moment. We're in a crisis culturally, and I think that can be seen in the arts, and the arts seem confused, right? They don't know what they're doing, and there's like a chaos there. And of course, art can be seen as controlled chaos. We have to be able to control the chaos. And the reason the thing I think is we have become ideologically captured, and what that means is the extreme points of view on the right and the left, and the right and the left don't describe it, because we are now getting people on the left here combining their opinion with people on the right here, because there's that opinion, and it's all falling apart. And it's the ideology, and I believe it's the middle route through that we've got to take, and we've got to be able to take both of these and compromise and boil them down and go through. But we really are ideologically captured at the moment, and that is something that I find very scary. I could be wrong. It might be that I've just swallowed a bunch of conspiracy theories and I've totally got it wrong, but I have been studying this philosophy for 40 years now, but I've been studying it from the point of view as a musician and an artist. I'm not an academic, right? I'm not massively well read, but I've tried my best. My brain doesn't work like that. My brain works in terms of like an artist. So I use it as source material, and it comes onto the channel. Now recently, what I've had is the channel has been doing greater and greater, and more people are coming, and there's more and more comments, and there is a lot of pushback against some of it, and I welcome that when it's reasonable and nice. And some people push back, and we've had a really nice conversation, but other people aren't, and the comments are getting aggressive, and the comments are getting a little bit like you feel like people are angry and they want to call me names and stuff like that. And I thought I could take that. This is what this video is really about. I thought I could take it, and I noticed psychologically I was changing over the last week or so, especially with people around me personally. I was moving into this aggressive mode. I was getting ideologically captured, and I was getting pulled in. I'm not saying I've changed my opinions, but what I was getting pulled into having a position myself. When you're faced with ideologues that just think that they have the moral ground, right, and they don't want it to be questioned, and they're not willing for it to be questioned. And when you write a massive big essays in your comments, it's taking you all night, and they're all reasoned, then somebody just comes on and moves on to something else, or just calls you a name, and doesn't address anything that you've just said, and that happens over and over again. And you think, what am I trying to do here? And I've had to step back and go, these people are not going to budge. Right, this is not the way to do it, right? The power I have is to come on here and talk. So the reason I'm coming on is that I am going to take a back seat from the comments. I will still look at them every now and then, but there's so many of them now, I can't get through them all, and I cannot physically sit down. On some nights I'm spending 3, 4, 5 hours answering. You look at the amount of answers that are in there, how much I've written, and because I'm trying to answer quick, I'm not being able to think that well, I'm not being able to research the stuff, I'm trying to pull stuff from my memory. If I'm trying to quote Foucault, I'm trying to quote, Nietzsche, and I'm not an academic, and I can't pull this stuff out that well, and I feel like I'm stumbling, and of course you feel like there's a certain contingent that are ready to pounce, and they're there, and all they're in that one conversation, and they're coming at you like this, and I'm trying to fight off, everybody that's coming my way, and I'm trying to keep logic, and I'm trying to keep holding of what my ideas are. Now, what my ideas are is I believe we've been ideologically captured on the right and the left, and I think that the right and the left are almost in like this weird collusion between them, and I think we need to take the middle path. Right, and I think what's happened is that we have elites that are unbelievably powerful now. Unbelievably powerful, that have control over us through what you're looking at right now. They have control over the capitalism has become so pointed, and that's the one end. And I understand the left panicking about these elites that are so in control. But on the left side, they have swallowed a whole bunch of postmodernist philosophy, critical theory, identitarian philosophy, intersectionality, and also a sort of Platonic essentialism where they're quite willing to embody things with almost like magical entities. So you get people talking about, sort of systemic bias, and I'm like, oh, where is this bias? The bias is in individual people. That's where the bias is. No, it's an organisational level. Well, if it is, that all that can be is the procedure and the rules. So look at the rules and take out the stuff which is prejudiced or racist or whatever it is. Remove it. Well, it all has been removed. So where's it coming from? Oh, it's a sort of systemic bias. Well, that's individuals. And the question is whether bias can be completely got rid of in people. And how are you going to get rid of bias in people? How are you going to do it? How totalitarian do you want to get to control the way people think? Maybe it's just the case that right-wing awful Nazi racist that lives down the corner we can do nothing about. No, we should change the world so they shouldn't be able to do that. Yes, but the control that you're going to have on people is going to, in the end, be a worse thing than having some idiot that has got a stupid opinion. And the best thing is for people to tut and walk away and go, what an idiot, right? Because that person's never going to listen. But acting like them makes it worse. Now, I'm now going into the thing that is out there in the world at the moment, and I'm expressing it. And I think perhaps I'm expressing it too much on this channel, which fundamentally is just a channel for people to come along and you know, talk about music. And most people don't want a bunch of that sort of politics as they will see it rammed down their throat. And I'm with them. That is one of the things I've realised that is happening here, and it maybe needs to be toned down, and I'm going to try and do that. My problem is I think art's important, and I think this is fundamental to art. Art is about freedom of expression, and it's about being able to express a view about the world which is new and innovative. It's about seeing a quality in the world that people haven't seen before, and that then readjusts our idea of what is beautiful or what is ugly. It readjusts our idea of what quality is, and then once we have our idea adjusted quality-wise, it enables us to make moral decisions. So all the great moral decisions, and this is the thing I've studied, is where is the worth? Where can we actually say that thing ended up with those people being helped? Right, so I always crack jokes about socialism, right? And I'm always a little bit of a sort of against socialism thing, right? Now, I believe that the greatest government this country ever had was the government that came in after the Second World War. It brought in the National Health Service, it strengthened the unions, it nationalised a number of things like travel, you know, rail and road, it nationalised power, and those things I could see really benefited people. Here in the UK, we have the National Health Service is a wonderful thing, and it's a socialist thing, and we pay through it for our taxes, and I have no problem with that, and I think that's really great. And I want to see a world where wealth is redistributed, and it is redistributed to those who are poor. And if you really want to know my fundamental problem with the identity politics, is that from my working in the arts and seeing how the funding works, right, if once you start to do identity groups, it's the privileged people in those identity groups that benefit, not the underprivileged people in those identity groups. Because the idea that there is an absolute essentialist privilege, and so if it just goes to that person that happens to, you know, the millionaire, you know, black person or the millionaire gay person receiving funds because they're gay, and so intersectionality, they have some lack of privilege that has to be rebalanced. That for me, I saw it with my own eyes. Something has to be done about it. It's not right. And the elites will use that to stop the redistribution to poor people. And on top of that, the ones at the bottom of the pile now, and you can't say this, people hate it when you say it, is the underprivileged white people. It's the white mother in this country that's going out and prostituting themselves to feed their kids. Something has to be done about it. Something has to be done about it. And I don't care if I get called a racist for saying that. Right? I'm not saying it's just the white people. I'm talking about, and this is the colour blindness that people seem to get so upset about when I talk about it. But I believe every mother, regardless of their sexuality, race, whatever, should not be in that situation. Right? We need to help the people at the bottom of the pile. That's where I'm coming from. I've got my own experiences. The other thing that's upset people is my insistence on saying that jazz is not a black music form. I'm going to just say it here really simply that why I'm saying that. right, I cannot think of any other music form that is identified as by a colour that's associated with a race. There is no white music, there is no red music, there is no yellow music. And to say it sounds awful. Right, so whatever thinking has arrived that we think it's okay to say black music. Jazz, the problem with jazz is jazz was grabbed by white elites and made into a commercial form, and it was all appropriate. Everyone who shouted at me, that's true. Right, it was called race music then, and now we're calling it black music. Right, and if anyone thinks I am disrespecting the incredible achievements, what it is that I think I have an understanding of it through studying it, where I can see what the achievement is. And the achievement is so incredible that this idea of calling it black music denigrates the achievements of the individual black Americans that created this form. I do not understand how I could be able to take a credit for what Mozart did or what Einstein did or what Charles Darwin did, because they happened to have a skin colour that was similar to mine, but not the same as mine, because I think I'm more mixed race than they were. And the fact that most black people in America are somewhat mixed race and most white people are somewhat mixed race, that I do not understand it. I do not understand how this is supposed to make things better. And how massive things in history, like the input of Native Americans in jazz, that's been completely obliterated. The stain of minstrelsy and blackface, which is basically, if you want to know where it's all come from, it's come from that more than anything else. And yet we have this, we're talking about this history, and nobody wants to acknowledge that American history is what it is. You know, Living Colour came out with I think their third album was called Stained. And that's the stain. And it can't be washed out. And not talk about it's not going to do anything. And saying a white person can't talk about it's not going to help. None of this is going to help. Banning people from speaking or saying certain words is not going to help. Right? And calling jazz black music is not going to help, because it points to something which has still not been solved. It's still not been resolved at all. Right? Who am I to talk about this? I'm a human being the same as anybody else, and we all have a right to talk about anything. Right? My right isn't because I'm black. My right is because I love jazz. Because to me, the jazz musicians that created jazz musicians, the black Americans that created jazz. Who created jazz? I'll tell you now. Right? Predominantly black Americans created jazz. They provided the geniuses that created it, and they have the X factor that comes from slavery. That's the thing that created jazz. I know that, right? I know that. But I really studied this history, and it's more complex than you think. Because what it is a product of was integration. Yeah, the black Americans who had no power in society were running the show. They were running the show, without a doubt. Okay? But as Louis Armstrong said, when the civil rights thing happened in the 1960s, he said we had more integration in jazz in the 1920s and 1930s. You know, black Americans created a music form that was incredible in its embracing of American values. And this current thing is not to embrace American values. It's to attack the West, attack Western liberalism, see what white people is doing as being some horrible, evil thing that's been happened, and to disassociate that and rebalance that. To value anything that's culturally happened, that's been applied to one race, completely subjectively, and another race. And this is moving towards a separatism, and it's going to end up with what we're seeing in the world at the moment. Can you believe, with what's happened in the 20th century, that there is anti-Semitism out there right now, and there's anti-Islam out there right now, and the factions are building up. We're moving towards a war based upon identity. And you have to ask yourself, what's caused that? Because at one point it was getting better. And in America, when they did the studies, people felt that the harmony between people was improving and improving and improving, all up until 2013, and then suddenly it's gone away. and that is the rise of digital media, the rise of social networking, and the proliferation of ideologies where these echo chambers pull us into one position or another, and we can no longer talk to each other. And the people who come along and say, you should not say that. Now, why am I saying this? Because I'm never going to go near this again. I have learnt my lesson, right? I have been so, I have fought my case and I haven't changed my opinion, but just having the hate directed at you all night, every time you go in the comments, and then in YouTube there's this bit where you can go to the hidden comments, and you don't see this, but I do, and I've got to stop looking at it, because it's like looking into Pandora's box. I shouldn't look in there, but I can't help myself, and then I open it up and I see what people are saying to me, right? Just because they disagree with me, and day after day and month after month, it is starting to affect me. And as I've said to people, I'm now at a point where it is so much easier to just shut up and not talk about these things and say my channel is not the place to do that. And I'm getting private messages from people saying, watch it, Andy, you don't want to end up being cancelled. You don't want somebody to go report you because of what you said. I'm thinking, what have I said? What have I said? I thought everything I was saying was to counteract racism, to counteract prejudice, to bring everybody together, to bring us all together because the music's unifying. That was the beauty of this channel. Right? I've made so many friends all over the world of all sorts of different races and genders and all sorts of things I've made through this. It's brought us together. We're brought together by a common thing, not an identity, by the music. I thought that's what was going on. I genuinely thought. And I've checked myself. And I can see that there's bias in what I've done. And I've tried it. There's certain points where I've gone too harsh and too far. Right? But I am at a point now where I think it might be best to just shut up. And if that's the case, those of you who felt that, well, I think I'm going to have to do that now, because for my own mental health, I don't want to be pulled down mentally, and I don't want to have my channel cancelled. And if you think that's a good thing, well, I don't know. Really? So I will be involved less in the comments. I am going to still be making my videos, and I am going to step a little bit away from the politics, right, and all that type of stuff, a little bit. Everything else is going to stay in place, and my intention on this channel is to try and bring people together that love this music, and fundamentally, in the long run, I want to be able to artists to use me to be able to reach the fan base that we have here, because the music we like here is really difficult for artists to actually reach the audience that likes it. And that is my original intention, and that's more important than arguing with stupid identitarians about identity politics. So I'm going to move away and get back on that, if you're all okay with that. Okay, this is the video, it's done. I hope I haven't gone over, but I haven't. I'm not going to do like and subscribe, because I don't care about that on this one. I just want to come on doing it. I'm done, finished, bye-bye, I'm going.